51-year-old Michael Tyler, also known as Mystikal, was arrested on multiple charges, including first-degree rape and domestic abuse battery.
Things have gone from bad to worse, and now it's a total disaster for Mystikal. Once one of the biggest names in early 2000s hip-hop, the rapper has faced serious legal battles more than once, and somehow came out clean both times. Even when he was staring down a possible life sentence, he managed to beat the odds. But this time, his luck might have finally run out. One of the alleged victims just shared shocking details in court that could mean Mystikal spends the rest of his life locked up. Is this really the end? Are we watching the complete fall of a hip-hop legend play out right in front of us? But how did it get this far? How did Mystikal go from chart-topping success to self-destruction? On July 30th, 2022, at his home in Prairieville, Louisiana, everything spiraled out of control. A woman, reportedly his longtime partner, said the chaos started after an argument about money. Mystikal allegedly accused her of taking cash from him, and things went downhill fast.
Good evening. First at 6 o'clock, Mystikal, a well-known rapper on the wrong side of the law tonight, his third arrest over the past 2 decades.
Voices were raised, tempers flared, and what started as a heated argument turned into something much darker. Witnesses say they heard intense shouting and objects being thrown inside the house. The situation became physical, with claims that Mystikal struck her, grabbed her, and even pulled her hair during the confrontation. The woman was left shaken and hurt, and what she described next left everyone stunned. The entire story sounds like something straight out of a nightmare, and now the rapper's entire career might hang in the balance. Mystikal, in what prosecutors described as a disturbing display of control, allegedly stopped the woman from leaving his home. He reportedly took her phone and car keys, leaving her trapped and terrified. The woman says she begged him to let her go, but Mystikal wouldn't listen, and what happened next stunned everyone in court. His anger suddenly faded, shifting into what she called a strange mix of regret and misplaced spirituality. According to the testimony, Mystikal began praying with her, claiming he wanted to cleanse her of bad energy. He even sprinkled alcohol on her face as part of what he called a spiritual cleansing.
What would you say was the lowest point in your career compared to the highest point in your career?
The lowest point in my career, definitely, well, besides the death of my sister, was being incarcerated for 6 years. Looking at BET, looking at MTV, can't participate.
The story took a dark turn as the woman testified that he then forced her onto a bed and allegedly assaulted her in an extremely violating way. After the incident, she managed to escape and ran straight to a hospital for help. Medical staff collected evidence, and according to reports, her injuries were consistent with what she described. Detectives investigating the scene said they found strands of her hair and a broken fingernail in Mystikal's home, evidence that backed up her story. Mystikal was arrested the very next day, July 31st, and initially faced charges for property damage and unlawful restraint. But as the case unfolded, more serious accusations piled up. 3 felony charges were added, including domestic abuse, battery involving choking, and simple robbery. The seriousness of the accusations against Mystikal can't be ignored, but what makes this even more intense is that it's not his first time facing these kinds of charges. Back in 2003, he pleaded guilty to a case involving his former hairstylist, connected to charges of battery and extortion. Mystikal ended up serving 6 years behind bars before getting out in 2010. But just 2 years later, he was back in legal trouble again.
Like when I say I represent Third Ward Cali, that's my hood, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna bring my boy Mystikal out to give him some No Limit Soldier. Get Mystikal. Mystikal. He's on your label too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
The sun's gonna stay in my eyes if I put it backwards.
Oh, no, you straight.
He reportedly violated his probation tied to that same case, which landed him back in jail for another 2 months. That rocky history has followed him ever since, and now is casting a huge shadow over his latest case. People are asking tough questions about his behavior and whether the people around him have ever truly been safe, especially since his legal team has been pushing hard for his release on bail. His attorney continues to defend him, insisting that Mystikal is innocent and that there's no history of domestic violence between him and the alleged victim. But the stakes couldn't be higher this time. The charges against Mystikal are extremely serious. If convicted of the most severe count, he could face life in prison with no chance of parole. And that's not all. The other accusations, including domestic abuse, battery involving choking, and robbery, each come with heavy consequences too. Despite his lawyer's efforts, the judge denied Mystikal's request for bond, leaving his defense team stunned and disappointed by the decision. His attorney claimed there was no sign of domestic violence between Mystikal and the alleged victim, saying he didn't believe Mystikal was capable of hurting anyone.
Major James Brown comparisons for obvious reasons. That's got to be a compliment.
Big time. You know, my mom was a big-time James Brown, you know what I'm saying, fan, so.
But is that really true? Because if we rewind to what happened back in 2002 and 2003, things start to look eerily similar, and the details from that time are hard to ignore. Back in 2003, Mystikal pleaded guilty to charges of sexual battery and extortion, and while some people say he beat the case since he only served 6 years instead of life, the outcome was still serious. He ended up being required to register as a lifetime offender, something that would follow him for the rest of his days. It all started in the summer of 2002 when Mystikal reportedly asked his hairstylist to come to his home in Baton Rouge to redo his braids. It sounded like a regular visit, but what happened next shocked everyone. Mystikal accused her of stealing from him, claiming he discovered that she had cashed several suspicious checks from his account, totaling around $80,000. He was furious, and instead of handling it the right way by calling the police or taking legal action, he decided to confront him himself. That confrontation quickly spiraled. According to reports, the woman tried to explain the situation, but Mystikal wasn't buying it. His frustration kept growing, and then things crossed a line that would change both of their lives forever. The court later revealed that Mystikal threatened to report her unless she complied with his demands, leaving her terrified and trapped in a moment of total fear. The hairstylist reportedly agreed to Mystikal's demands out of fear, but that's when things took a disturbing turn. Mystikal allegedly called his 2 bodyguards, Leyland L. Pokey Ellis and V. Singh Carter, telling them to come over immediately. When they arrived, Mystikal reportedly asked Ellis to record what was happening, making sure every moment was captured on camera. Reports later claimed that as the recording went on, Mystikal's behavior became more aggressive and the woman was violated by all 3 men involved. The ordeal left the hairstylist deeply traumatized and emotionally shattered. After struggling with the weight of what happened, she decided to go to the police and tell them everything. Authorities acted fast. They launched a raid at his home, searching for evidence connected to her report. What they discovered was shocking. Hidden inside a safe, investigators found a videotape, a direct recording of what allegedly took place that day. The evidence was overwhelming, and once it surfaced, the case moved forward at lightning speed. On July 18, 2002, Mystikal and his 2 bodyguards, Ellis and Carter, were arrested in connection with the case. The charges they faced were extremely serious, including aggravated assault and extortion. As the legal chaos unfolded, Mystikal's defense attorney worked non-stop to negotiate a deal with prosecutors, trying to secure the best possible outcome for his client. After intense discussions, a plea bargain was finally reached. Mystikal agreed to plead guilty to a lesser charge of sexual battery in exchange for a shorter prison sentence.
But then, in December 2003, Mystikal made a shocking move. He took back his guilty plea to the charges of sexual battery and no contest to extortion. This sudden change left everyone stunned, and the reason behind it was just as wild. Prosecutors had reportedly handed over a videotape to the judge, said to show the alleged incident, and Mystikal's defense team panicked. They feared that this new piece of evidence could completely destroy their case, so they tried to retract the plea before sentencing. To their surprise, prosecutors initially agreed to keep the tape sealed and not use it in court. But when the judge later asked to personally review the footage before making a final decision, the prosecution agreed, and that decision changed everything. Mystikal's defense team felt blindsided, claiming they had believed the tape would remain private forever. On January 15, 2004, the court handed down its verdict. Mystikal was sentenced to 6 years in prison for sexual battery involving his former hairstylist. The judge didn't hold back, reminding Mystikal of his past run-ins with the law, including earlier arrests for drugs and firearm possession. On top of that, he was ordered to register as a lifetime offender under Louisiana law. The judge also criticized Mystikal's mindset, saying he acted as if fame put him above the law and that the plea deal had already spared him from a much harsher sentence. Mystikal's release terms included 5 years of strict probation with a clear warning. If he violated any of those conditions, he could end up back behind bars for another decade. 3 years after his conviction, Mystikal reportedly paid the woman $350,000, his way of trying to make amends for everything that happened and the pain it caused. Hearing all this, it's easy to wonder how things ever got this dark. How could someone with fame, money, and talent end up making choices that destroyed so much? It's confusing. A man who had everything most people dream about, from luxury to attention, throwing it all away in one disastrous moment. You'd expect there to be some kind of explanation, maybe a tragic backstory that could help it make sense. But even his early struggles don't excuse what came later. Mystikal's first heartbreak came early in life. His mom raised him on her own after his father passed away when he was just 7 years old. That loss shaped him deeply, leaving a mark that never really faded. Born Michael Tyler in the lively city of New Orleans, Louisiana, Mystikal grew up surrounded by rhythm and soul. The city's energy ran through everything he did, from his voice to his stage presence. He often said that New Orleans didn't just give him a hometown, it gave him a sound. The streets, the music, the people, they all molded his unique flow. But there was more to New Orleans than just its beats and brass bands. In one interview with XXL, Mystikal shared what made his upbringing special. New Orleans is different from everywhere, he said. We didn't have gangs like in California, so you didn't have to worry about all that. He even compared his childhood to the Cosby Show without all the money, pointing out that while his neighborhood wasn't wealthy, it was still full of family, laughter, and community spirit. Mystikal's mom did everything she could to protect him from the harsh side of their reality. She kept him from feeling the full weight of their struggles, so even though they didn't have much, he grew up feeling loved and cared for. Despite living in New Orleans' 12th Ward, one of the city's roughest and most underprivileged areas, Mystikal was one of the lucky ones. While many kids in his neighborhood turned to the streets to survive, his mother, Marie Tyler, made sure her children took a different route. As a single mom, she leaned on her large extended family to raise Mystikal and his 2 siblings, Michelle and Maurice, in a tight circle of love and discipline. They made sure the kids stayed in school, went to church, and stayed out of trouble. The focus was on working hard, keeping faith strong, and building something better, no matter how tough things got. That's why Mystikal's later choices shocked so many. They didn't match the man his family tried to raise. But before all the fame and controversy, he was just another kid in high school with big dreams and a lot to prove. He'd been rapping casually for a while, but one day everything changed. Another student walked up to him in the hallway and said he could outshine Mystikal in a rap battle, and that challenge lit a fire in him. Right then, Mystikal realized rap wasn't just about telling stories, it was about confidence, energy, and proving you had the skills to back it up. I wanted a certain reaction. If you laughed, that was a win for me, because it meant I said something real. That's what Mystikal later told Jive Records when reflecting on his wild stage energy. He explained that his goal was always to get people hyped, and that same drive turned him into one of hip-hop's most electrifying performers. Even though Mystikal eventually built his name through his fierce lyrics and signature delivery, he didn't first blow up in New Orleans because of rap. It was actually his dance moves that got him noticed. Back in the day, he was part of a local dance crew called the Converse Crew, and their slick choreography had the whole city watching. But as dance battles started to fade out of style, Mystikal switched things up, just like many other Southern artists at the time, and began exploring rapping and producing as new ways to express himself. Over in New Orleans, producer and DJ KLC was already making noise in the local scene with the 3-9 Posse. When KLC spotted Mystikal's unique flow and stage energy, he brought him into the studio to record some early demos. But reality hit hard. Money was tight and Mystikal was struggling to stay afloat. After graduating from Cohen High School and working random jobs to get by, he decided to take a major step away from music. He enlisted in the U.S. Army, serving during the Gulf War. Even then, though, his passion for music never died. Whenever he got time off, he'd sneak back to New Orleans to stay connected to the city's growing rap movement. And when his time in the military came to an end, he jumped right back into the game,
returning home just as the New Orleans rap scene was exploding and local labels were finally getting national attention. When Mystikal got back home, he saw a golden opportunity. This was his moment to turn that old hobby into a full-blown career. He wasted no time reaching out to producer KLC for help. At the time, KLC was busy working with a bunch of local hip-hop acts, including the 3-9 Posse and an up-and-coming artist named Lil Slim, who would later be known as Soulja Slim. Still, KLC believed in Mystikal's talent and promised to help produce his first album once he wrapped up his other projects. But Mystikal wasn't the type to sit around and wait. He was hungry for success. So he went ahead and signed with a local label called Big Boy Records. Not long after that, in early 1995, he dropped his self-titled album, Mystikal. Unfortunately, it didn't get the love he expected from his hometown crowd. At that time, New Orleans was buzzing with a new wave. The bounce sound was taking over. Artists like DJ Jubilee and Partners in Crime had the city on lock, and Mystikal's harder, more aggressive style had to fight for attention. It was tough to get people to listen to my music, Mystikal later admitted. But even with the odds stacked against him, he refused to back down.
Before long, the local scene started to recognize his raw energy and command and delivery. That buzz got the attention of Jive Records in New York, and soon enough, Mystikal scored a major distribution deal. Jive re-released his debut album with new tracks and a fresh title, Mind of Mystikal, in February 1995. The project blew up, selling over 500,000 copies and earning national airplay across radio stations. It looked like Mystikal was finally breaking through, but behind the scenes, things were still rough financially. Mystikal was the middle child in his family. His big sister Michelle and his younger brother Maurice meant everything to him. Out of everyone, Michelle was his biggest supporter, his rock. She was crazy talented too, but her lane was R&B, not rap. She had a smooth, soulful voice that perfectly complemented Mystikal's fiery energy. The two even worked together on his early songs. She sang the chorus on Not That. And when Mystikal landed his deal with Jive Records, Michelle got signed too as an R&B artist. It seemed like the dream was finally coming true. They were about to take over the world together and pull their family out of poverty. But then everything fell apart in the worst way imaginable. Michelle's life was cut short in a tragic and violent incident that left everyone shattered. In an emotional interview with Vlad TV, Mystikal shared the painful memory of finding his sister at home. "I found her," he said quietly. "Thank God it was me and not my little brother or my mom. She was lying in a bed, gone, wearing one of Mystikal's promotional t-shirts that read, 'I'm Not That,' the same name as their first single together. The heartbreak was unbearable. And to make it even more devastating, it happened on Mystikal's birthday. The main suspect was Michelle's boyfriend, Damian Neville, but there was a serious complication. Damian came from one of New Orleans' most famous musical families, the Neville brothers. Despite reportedly confessing to the crime, he was later acquitted due to a lack of evidence. Mystikal believed that power and privilege played a role in that outcome, convinced that Damian's family name carried more weight than justice itself. His people had influence, Mystikal once said, and we were just regular folks. You can only imagine the kind of pain Mystikal was carrying after losing his sister. That kind of grief doesn't fade easily. He wanted payback, and in his own words, he said, "There's more than one way to get even." But before he could make a move that would have changed his life forever, his mother stepped in. She stopped him right in his tracks and told him to let go of revenge and focus on something better. Listening to her, Mystikal took all that anger and heartbreak and poured it into his music instead. Out of that pain came the song Murderer, where he openly called out Damian Neville and accused him of being behind Michelle's death. Every line was filled with raw emotion, grief, rage, and a desperate cry for justice. The song struck a chord with fans who could feel every ounce of his pain through his voice. Mystikal dedicated multiple songs to Michelle over the years, using his art as a way to cope and keep a memory alive. But even with all that music, the weight of not knowing who truly ended a life never stopped haunting him. It tore him up inside. The case itself left investigators puzzled too. How could something so brutal happen in her own home without anyone hearing the thing?
16 stab wounds, no screams, no struggle. It didn't make sense. The unanswered questions made the tragedy even harder for Mystikal to accept. That moment, losing Michelle, was a breaking point in his life, a true turning point. You could see the pain shape who he became afterward. For some people, grief becomes fuel for growth, but for Mystikal, it started to eat away at him from the inside. After his sister's passing, Mystikal's career started climbing fast. His fame was exploding, but behind the scenes, he was spiraling emotionally, even if he didn't realize it yet. In a later interview with Vlad TV, Mystikal revealed that after Michelle's death, he completely lost his fear of dying. He said he was ready to go at any time, a chilling mindset that showed just how broken he was inside. In 1994, he dropped his first album, Mystical Madness, that made waves in the local New Orleans music scene. The project caught the attention of Master P, the CEO of No Limit Records, who instantly saw Mystikal's raw talent and wild stage energy. While Mystical Madness got him noticed, it was his next project, Mind of Mystikal, released in 1995, that truly turned him into a rising star. That album was a powerhouse. His delivery was fierce, fast, and full of that unmistakable New Orleans flavor. Tracks like Y'all Ain't Ready Yet and Here I Go became instant fan favorites, putting Mystikal on the national map and earning him respect from hip-hop critics and fans alike. Beyond the music, Mystikal and Master P shared something deeper than business. They both knew what it felt like to lose a loved one. Master P had lost his younger brother, Kevin, in a drug-related shooting, and Mystikal was encouraged to use his pain as creative fuel instead of letting it consume him. So when Mystikal joined No Limit, his first album with the label, Unpredictable, released in 1997, became a personal one. It featured Shine, a heartfelt tribute to Michelle, and Murderer 2, a follow-up track directed toward Damian Neville. By 1999, Mystikal was unstoppable. He dropped Ghetto Fabulous, produced by No Limit's powerhouse team, Beats by the Pound, and loaded it with features from his No Limit label mates, plus big names like Busta Rhymes and Naughty by Nature, two of his biggest musical inspirations. That album proved that Mystikal wasn't just another Southern rapper, he was a force in hip-hop with national reach. In early 2000, Mystikal reunited with his longtime producer, KLC, at his massive home studio to start working on a new project that would take things to the next level. That album was Let's Get Ready. At this point, Mystikal had it all: fame, fortune, and a huge home in one of New Orleans' most exclusive gated communities. He had climbed a mountain of success, and from there, the view was incredible. But life has a way of testing people once they reach the top. When Let's Get Ready finally dropped in 2000, it became the defining moment of his career. The album was a hit factory, featuring chart-topping anthems like Shake Your Ass and Danger, Been So Long. Those songs lit up the radio, dominated clubs, and showcased Mystikal's explosive voice, wild energy, and signature rapid-fire delivery. The project went platinum, officially cementing Mystikal as one of the most unique and dynamic voices in hip-hop. His music was everywhere, and it looked like nothing could stop him now.
But while the world saw a confident superstar at his peak, what was happening behind closed doors told a very different story. Fame couldn't hide the personal battles brewing beneath the surface. By 2002, Mystikal's life took a dark turn when he got caught up in a major legal controversy involving serious accusations that would derail everything he had built. At first, Mystikal's legal troubles didn't completely erase his impact on the music industry. They slowed him down, but they didn't stop him. His talent was undeniable, and fans still believed he could make a comeback. But by 2004, his incarceration changed everything. 6 long years behind bars would become the breaking point that shifted his entire life and career. While serving his sentence, Mystikal ran into even more problems that kept his name in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. The first issue came when it was discovered that he hadn't filed his federal tax returns for 1998 and 1999. Even though those charges were misdemeanors, they still carried serious consequences. The court decided he would serve a 1-year federal sentence at the same time as his 6-year state sentence from the earlier conviction. That decision also meant he lost his shot at early parole, keeping him locked up longer than he might have expected. Still, after years behind bars,
Mystikal finally walked free in 2010, determined to leave the chaos behind and rebuild both his image and his career. When he got out, fans were hopeful that the old Mystikal, the performer with unmatched energy and charisma, was back for good. He jumped back into music, made appearances, and talked about wanting to focus on positivity and redemption. But just when it seemed like he was turning things around, his past patterns resurfaced. In February 2012, Mystikal got into a heated dispute with his partner at the time. The details weren't fully released to the public, but the argument reportedly escalated to the point that police were called, and he was arrested on a charge related to domestic abuse. The incident kept Mystikal behind bars for 9 days before he was finally released on bail. But that was far from the end of his troubles. In April 2012, things took another bad turn when he was found to have violated the terms of his probation. Because of that, the court handed him a 3-month jail sentence, giving him credit for the 9 days he had already served. Mystikal began serving that sentence on May 14, 2012, at the East Baton Rouge Parish Jail. With time served factored in, his total stay was reduced to about 81 days. Still, it was a tough reality for someone who had just been trying to move forward. What was supposed to be a fresh start quickly turned into another setback, leaving him once again stuck behind bars and struggling to rebuild his life. These repeated legal issues made his path to redemption incredibly difficult. Every time he tried to step back into the spotlight, something pulled him down again. His public image took a massive hit, and the media wasn't letting go. Every headline focused on his past instead of his music. The same fans who once cheered him on now questioned if he could ever truly bounce back. As time passed, Mystikal's fame slowly faded. The rapper who once packed arenas now faced an uphill climb just to stay relevant. Yet even after all the chaos, he still held on to one thing: belief in his music and his talent. He kept saying he wanted to prove that he could rise above it all. But years later, the truth became harder to ignore. The same destructive habits that haunted him early on never really left. Now, at 54 years old, Mystikal finds himself facing the harshest chapter of his story, one filled with regret, consequences, and the weight of everything he's done. It's a tragic fall from grace that makes people ask, how did someone with so much talent end up here? If you made it to the end of this video, make sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment with your thoughts on Mystikal's downfall, and subscribe for more stories that dig deep into the highs and lows of hip-hop's most controversial figures.